everybody. He's kind of a celebrity. He's my celebrity, and at least anyway. He's my celebrity today too. We are with the one and only, the dentalpreneur, the Mark Costas.
Dr. Mark Costas.
I got to tell you a little story about Mark too.
Thanks,
Craig,
guys.
I don't know if you knew this about Mark, but I remember Mark helped me before I even had a podcast, he and I being friends. And I think, Mark, you spent some time helping me analyze a practice acquisition. I don't know if you remember that back in 2016. Probably don't even remember. You helped me kind of go through it and say like, yeah, it's a good deal, bad deal. It ended up being a great deal. Still have it, by the way. Thank you very much. But it was never lost on me how you kind of just helped me through that for not wanting anything. You're just a good guy and good for dentistry. And obviously you pump out a tremendous amount of content. It's almost like, Craig and I just sit there with FOMO, like, how does this guy pump out so much content from the podcast? But anyway, long time coming. We're glad all three of us are together because we are friends outside of podcasting. We are friends in the space of dentistry because we all are very passionate about it, but we're just glad to connect with you, buddy. It's hard to align our calendars, but we're glad to be here.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Shit. I'm really, really honored to be here. And I do remember that, Peter. I don't remember what the advice was. I remember sitting down with some papers and going through some stuff, but yeah, man, you guys have just blown up. You're kicking ass. You're killing it.
I'm riding Peter's coattails, Mark.
Stuff. That's right. That's what I tell them. It's like, they're getting heavy because you're a big boy. They're getting heavy.
I'll ride both of your coattails if you allow me to.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with riding coattails. That's for sure. All of us got here.
Hey, it works for me.
Coattails. That's right.
Yeah. A coat, and for those of you, for you, Craig, a coat is something that you put on in cold weather.
Yes, I've heard of this. By cold, you mean 72 and below. 72
That's
degrees.
right. So imagine you wake up, it's a blustering 70 degrees.
Oh God,
You go into your closet if you lived somewhere like San Diego instead of where you live in Florida, and you put on this thing. It's like it's an over garment.
Is it like a shirt but heavier? Is that
exactly? And it's a little bit bigger, so it goes over what you're currently wearing, and
so you don't take off your shirt. You actually put layers of clothing on.
That's correct. That's correct. And some of the old ones had tails off the back of them, like back in old England,
like a penguin.
Exactly. So if you can imagine, then riding your coattails would mean that Peter and I from colder climates would be wearing one of these with these long tails, and you would just hop on.
That's the way I take a ride too. Is taking rides.
I'm 205 pounds and 6'5", so I in my mind I step on those. Bullshit. What?
205? I think I'd go up from there a little, buddy.
No, I'm 205 pounds. You think I'm heavier or lighter?
Yeah, you seem much bigger than that.
Dude, look at this.
No, I didn't say muscular. I didn't say muscular. He just sucked it in big time there, by the
way. I did. Hey, we're at like 1 million or something downloads, aren't we? I mean, I never let the truth get in the way of a good story, but this is important. But I think what I'm trying to say,
Mark's at 10 million.
I'm at 6. I just crossed 6.
Are you really?
Yeah. 1,440 episodes.
So I do have a question. I know this is a side conversation, but how do you curate or ideate so much content to do it daily?
Yeah. So we have these weird bursts. Like today, this particular day, which is a Wednesday, I have 6 podcast interviews. Some are on other people's shows. Some are on my shows, but that literally happens like once every 2 months. And then the rest of them.
Craig, how unimportant did you just feel just right there? We are one of 6. How unimportant? Just
I
on a scale of 1 to 10.
a sixth as important as I did a minute ago.
Yeah.
1/6. But I felt pretty important before. So being that it was only depleted by 12.5%.
All right, we interrupted you, Mark. Go ahead with.
All right.
So, there's traditional interviews, and then there's I have the privilege of speaking a lot, either to our own small group where maybe 4 or 5 times a year I'm doing 3 or 4 hour unique content lectures. So we chop that stuff up. And if I talk on somebody else's stage, we always negotiate the fact that I own all of my own IP and all of my own content. So they'll give me that and I can chop that up. And so, yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways to repurpose content. You can repurpose it to YouTube, you can repurpose it to socials, and you can take your live stuff and turn it into podcast episodes.
Where do you feel like people's attention is? Where do you feel like the sweet spot is for maybe you as a consumer first? When Mark looks at his own podcast thing, where do you feel like when you look at like, oh, that's a cool new, Patrick Bet-David download or whatever, and you say it's like 3 hours long, you're like, ooh, like where do you feel like is inflection point for somebody being like, heck yes, I'm listening, versus I'll do it later, from a timeline, from a time length?
It's interesting because, the Joe Rogan long form content, it feels like is dead. Patrick Bet David and those kinds of guys, they're still doing it. Tim Ferriss, he's about 60 to 90 minutes is his length.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can pull it off, but you have to remember that you get credit for 5 minutes of a listen,
mm-hmm.
right? I always wonder how many people are listening through the whole, whole length of mine, but you get credit for the first 5 minutes. If I'm listening to Joe Rogan podcast, I'm listening to the chopped up version of it. And I like to get the headlines.
Yeah. The clips, the Jerry clips.
That's right. And, and on rare occasion, like the Jamie Foxx one, I'll listen to that all the way through and I'll love every minute of it. But for the most part, who's got time for 3 hours?
Yeah.
I'll tell you that in today's day and age, people have very, very little attention spans.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. TikTok is 10-second videos and people are like, oh, can't get
kind of
through
training
that.
us. It's kind of training us. And not just so much as dentists being the consumer of the podcast, but also consumers being that of what you pump out for your dental practices, right? Like I've almost shifted the way you've got a couple of very microseconds to get someone's attention to get them to become a patient of your practices as well. So I think marketing and I think attention is just becoming the rarer and rarer commodity, whether that's marketing for your practices or getting people to listen to your podcast or whatever it is, it's still attention, right?
It is true. People love the story though still. I mean, I think it really depends on what you're selling. If you're selling a $50,000 product, people want to hear the story. They want to believe in you as the founder. And I think people will take more time to sift through that stuff if they're a true fan and they're serious potential customer. The Dan Kennedy style 13-page minimum sales letter, and they don't tell you what the price is until the very end, and you're like scrolling through like, what the hell? Give me to the end of this.
Right.
And I think that's over unless you're a Dan Kennedy zealot. I mean, I still think that there's a place for it.
Interesting. So Craig, any comments on that, Craig, before?
No. My ADD kicked up. I stopped listening to you guys.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, listen, for me, it's hard for me to allocate the brain power to one of the Joe Rogan podcasts, even though I really find long form conversation really interesting. I'm lucky enough to just, have a lot of those conversations with friends. I talk to friends a lot. So a conversation is just something you can get hooked into. Like to your point, Mark, we're wired to listen to story. That's why we can sit, even though we're all ADD now and phone and with our phones and TikTok, we still can sit down in a movie for 2 hours and totally forget about our life. We get immersed in the formula of a story. So I agree. And I do think there's something very engaging to just listen to people that you respect or value their opinion, just go through their fodder and their conversation. I think it's something that never gets old. Hopefully we're doing that right now for people. But also, I have asked the listeners, if you've listened to the entire thing, please write in the chat. And they do. And so
they do. Because I always say,
Peter's like, we got to wrap.
Yeah. I get so frenetic about taking too much time from someone.
I'm like, no, Peter, bullshit. People are still listening to this. Do me a favor. If you're actually listening to the end, write the word end with an exclamation point if you thought it was good and you listened to the end. And sure enough, in the comments, it's like end.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I need me more Bulletproof. I can't get enough.
I
need every
just
second.
Consume it. All right, Mark. So if someone is listening, let's just say on the off chance that there's a Bulletproof listener that doesn't know who Mark Costas is.
Impossible.
What would you very, very strong
I would say there's less than 1%. It's a non-zero, but it's less than 1. What would you describe kind of your ecosystem? Obviously it's comprised of Dental Success Institute, right? Primarily, and everything kind of falls into that. But like in a couple, succinctly, what would you say your ecosystem is kind of comprised of?
I think that the biggest audience is the Dentalpreneur podcast audience. God, it's crazy, guys. I don't know what's going on with Libsyn, and I don't know if it's broken. Every time we pull up a Libsyn kind of scorecard thing, I don't like to watch it from day to day, even week to week, but every once in a while we pull it up and it's like, what in the hell? Where are these people? Like, this is crazy. Are there bots? Because lately,
like listening bots.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I want to catch myself doing something right, but I'm like, I haven't changed anything for the last 6 years. And today we got 15,000 downloads. I don't get it.
So those of you who are listening, Libsyn is usually what a lot of people, podcasters used to host the files that then get uploaded to the podcast app for Apple. So it's hosted just like a website's hosted. So you get statistics, like Mark's saying, based on downloads and where they're coming from geographically and regionally and age and stuff like that. So you're saying there's been a massive, Mark, you're saying there's been a massive uptick or just randomized data now?
Yeah, but it's all over the place, right? So February was, normal. And then this month is twice as much as February, like 2 times. And I'm sure it's going to correct itself again, but the curve doesn't go up like a smooth hockey stick. It goes up like a jagged hockey stick and then sometimes back down and then back up again. I'm just saying I haven't changed the formula and I don't know where these guys are coming from. And I want to figure out what the formula is so I can do more of that and less of the anti-formula. But my ecosystem is probably biggest audience is probably the podcast. And then maybe live events and stuff. But the company footprint is we're almost to 1,200 at DSN, which is a different audience because they're not quote unquote consulting clients, like a one-on-one consulting clients for my higher end coaching. That's limited at 200. So we have DSN, which is about almost 1,200 dentists. We have the podcast, which is, I don't know, 10 to 15,000 very loyal listeners.
Yeah.
That listen pretty much every day. And then that just racks up as downloads every single day. And then just the little one-offs at the dental schools.
So podcast, the DSN network of 1,200 dentists, that's a subscription, right?
Yeah.
Service or a membership, I should say. And then your more intimate feature is your masterminds. I mean, that's what we call it on our end. So I don't know what you're calling it, but you do have 200 in your coaching program. Right?
Well, it's capped at 200. We're 189 or 186 or something.
Okay.
Given the day. Yeah. So this year we will hit our max and then start taking applications only and wait for attrition, kind of like the velvet rope. One leaves, one can come in, depending on, the applications and kind of the black belt coaches help me sift through that. And we actually are in a place now, which is wonderful, where we can actually say, yes or no, guys, thumbs up, thumbs down. Will they fit our culture? Because we're looking at this as if it was a dental practice, right? Imagine you have 200 employees in a very small, in a very small community. One person can screw the whole thing up. So
for sure. Yeah. You need a good group. So what would you say do you have a specific target, or is there a specific dentist or dental practice that you help, or do you actually just take in everybody, regardless of their size or their goals? Let me hear a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, they say if you're trying to please everybody, you're pleasing no one. Like the color beige. Nobody likes beige. You can call it coffee. Some people like coffee,
I love
mocha.
coffee.
But if you're trying to please everyone, you please no one. However, we go more on culture and personality fit than we do on size of practice. We have, the occasional dental student even that is like, I bought a practice. I own a practice. I scraped together $50,000 and I bought a practice that's doing $95,000. I need help so badly. I worked it into my loan. Will you take me? There's one or two of those. And then we have, 25 practice
smart
groups that are doing $35 million and everything in between that you could possibly imagine. And, it's funny when you sit down and you're like, the 4-year dental student sits down next to the CEO of, XYZ DSO group, and they're having lunch together. Yeah. And I'm just like, I bet you the DSO owner is getting as much out of talking to this 4-year dental student than vice versa. You can always learn, dude. Always.
For sure. I mean, listen, and the mentorship of the big shot next to the startup guy is also good for them. I mean, it's one of the most beautiful things in life that you can help somebody else without in the process helping yourself. It does remind me of a funny story. Peter and I, at our last mastermind, we have this VIP, at the last summit, we have a VIP section. So we have breakfast, lunch with the attendees, and a guy comes up. I won't out him completely. His name is Jeffrey. He comes over, he brought like 5 of his team, And he sits down and he says, Craig, you are like one of my favorite people on the planet. And automatically I'm just like, oh shit, this guy's going to get to know me and realize that he doesn't like me at all. But he's like,
you're up for a huge disappointment.
Yeah, here's a huge, if I'm like, the first thing out of my mouth is like, you need to meet more impressive people, number one. He's like, no, seriously, man. I listened to everything you and Peter said, and I've implemented everything you said. And I'm hearing this guy, I don't know what he's about to say. I'm like, so tell me a little about your practice. He's like, yeah, we're at $26 million top line, $6 million EBITDA. And I'm like, damn, I'm like, listen, do me a favor. Let's have a small, quick conversation, but then go talk to somebody else. Cause you meet your hero, you're going to like screw this whole thing up. So, but it was funny. And he's just a giving human being, and he has great reasons for doing it. He unfortunately lost a small child and went through a lot of personal turmoil and really refined his mission to help other people. And he's just a total rock star. But it's interesting that we have the capacity to help people who are running faster than we are. And Peter and I always say, like, even Tiger Woods has a golf coach, and his golf coach can't play like Tiger, but still can add value. So I love putting people all together at all different levels of their cycle of development, because you find the guy who's reached finger quotes success and realizes that he's unfulfilled and can learn fulfillment from the guy who's a startup. So everybody's chasing different things. And I love the camaraderie of masterminds. It's been beautiful for me. So even if there was no business attached to it, it's easily one of the things that's made me most fulfilled, is being in a mastermind and helping people. I just love it.
I love that sentiment. I couldn't agree more as well. It's funny. My advisors are like, hey, dude, like, okay, you need to get a more scalable product, right? So your time talking on the phone, one practice owner at a time is not scalable. You know this, right? You know that they are taking an hour out of a 40-hour week, and you're taking 35 hours out of a 40-hour week to talk to other people. And that's not scalable. At some point, you're going to reach the ceiling. If you're going to get into business, do something that's scalable, and that's not one-on-one coaching. However, I will say there's nothing more satisfying and fulfilling than watching people apply any little bit of knowledge that you have or advice that you have and running with it, implementing and exploding. It's the coolest thing ever.
It is. And if you spend your life planting seeds to help people, eventually, there's a certain inflection point where you're just kind of giving, and nothing's really returning. And then all of a sudden, like, you turn around and there's oak trees everywhere. And I'm at the point in my life, I guess, at the age I am and how many years I've been at it, there's such a rewarding life cycle at this point where I'm meeting people and they're like, hey, we had a conversation 10 years ago and it took me on this trajectory. And so it's really nice to be in that point. And you bring up something important. Sometimes the ROI is just fulfillment. And as Peter and I say in our book, it's like life's ultimate ROI is your happiness. I know a lot of rich, miserable people, and I recognize it's not scalable. We do. And in the mastermind that we have currently, we invite these practices into my office for the entire day. So it is like, talk about the most nonlinear exchange of value. I have like 6 people occupy my entire day. And I had one on Monday. Akbo is here. And it's just awesome. I know it's just really bad for my productivity because I'm with these people. It's like an entire day of me being on stage. But I love it. And
that's incredible. That's incredibly generous. It's funny, if it's your calling, you don't care about the financial return. It actually is. It doesn't return dollar per hour that you put into it, and I don't care. But our mastermind is run by people that have actually, quote unquote, graduated through there. Our black belt coaches are all people that have earned their black belt through our organization. And that means 50% overhead or less, 80% as far as our assessment scores in leadership, cultural assessment, systemization. They check all of those off, maintain that for 6 months. They get an invitation if they're willing to become a black belt coach. And if they get unanimously voted into the fold, then they get their stripes and they're allowed to become a black belt coach for the incredible compensation of $0 to help other people,
sure.
By, getting on a call for a half hour, 12 times a week with other community members. That is their payback. And they don't need to do this. These are all multimillionaires. These are the tip of the spear, the top 0.1% of the entire profession. And they're volunteering. They're actually competing for these spots just
Of
to be able to
course.
give back. It's incredible.
And it's a good idea for them. It's a good idea for them. You want to be happy, dedicate your life to helping other people. The getting is in the giving. And I fully agree with that. So let me ask you, let me just kind of shift gears for a second, if you don't mind, Mark.
Yeah,
Are you still a practice owner? Do you still own your practices?
I own 4 practices. I've owned 16. So I'm down to 4, and I can neither confirm nor deny that they might be off my plate within 12 to 24 months. We'll see. But I've done it all in practice ownership, not as far as quote unquote success, but I mean, I think I've seen what I need to see and I've experienced what I need to experience. I still love clinical dentistry, but I'm scratching my itch with clinical dentistry by teaching at the Colorado Surgical Institute. I'm teaching all NX and implant placement and stuff like that.
No way.
Yeah. So
I didn't know you're an implant. You place implants?
I do. And I teach it, but that scratches the itch for me. Right.
Oh, good for you. That's awesome.
So I don't feel like I need to practice for another 25 years. I could, but I don't have to in the traditional sense. But I still love all of my people. I have over 50 employees just for the dental practices, and the other companies are a different story, but I still love them. I love my patients, but it might be time to turn the page. I'm not sure. I haven't decided yet.
What's governing that decision, if you don't mind me asking?
I think that when I know, I'll know.
Mm-hmm.
And, but if you guys know, if you're wishy-washy like that, one bad day or, one letter from the board away, or one unreasonable patient away from making kind of a rash decision. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for that.
I want to go, Mark, to where, obviously you've been a coach to so many and you've been able to see the data from so many practices. Craig and I, on a lesser scale, what we see the impact, we talk about the masterminds, you have your 200 or 189, but you get to see recurring data, right? And therefore it identifies trends. What do you see as being like, what do I say? Like the biggest aha moment for someone when they get integrated into your program and all of a sudden, like the lights just come on. Is it a certain thing for them, for the dentist, that all of a sudden says, holy shit, it's like no more barriers. And like, I didn't know that was possible. And, like Craig always says, like we always set our thermostats for where we think we're supposed to be comfortable. And it's like, oh wait, I'm doing a little too well. Something's going to go wrong. I better cool it down,
And that's all subconscious.
It's all subconscious too.
Yeah.
So like, where do you see like, I know it's a very vague question, but you know what I'm talking about. Like you see someone who's kind of been mediocre for the past 3 years, and all of a sudden they're just like 30% that, under your guidance. And it's like, and you didn't really do much. You didn't give them a magic pill that said, hey, do this YouTube hack and you will be 30% better. It's just like, you know what I'm trying to say? I'm kind of rambling with this question. Okay.
No, I do. So we break things down into phases, right? So we have phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, and it goes like 60% overhead, 55% overhead, 50% overhead, and then 45% overhead. So those are just the numerical phases. Attached with those are assessment scores, the ones that I talked about: leadership, culture, systemization, right? So they come in and they take a battery of assessment scores, assessment tests, and then we have their financial background, and we work with their CPAs every month, and we do their financial reporting, so we know exactly where their overhead is. So people come in at different levels. You'll have somebody that comes in as less than a white belt or a phase 0. And they're relatively sophisticated, but maybe they're in like a market that's super competitive, or maybe they're just super nice person and they're overpaying all their executive team, but they have everything else except for 1 or 2 tweaks that need to take place. And then we have people that come in at black belt level where they're like, I have 48% overhead. And you look at their financial reports and you're like, this guy's got it going on, or this gal's got it going on. Everything looks perfect. And then you talk to them and they're like, it's a chaos. Like our people hate each other. Like I'm the worst leader ever.
I'm miserable. Yeah.
I'm miserable. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. So they need work in different areas. So everybody comes in at a different level, with different pain points, different levels of prioritization. And we kind of unroot those and work on them. But I will say the biggest aha moment typically comes when people show up for their first live event. So we have one coming up in North Carolina on the 29th of April. Okay. So there'll be 160 people there. And, somebody comes in for the very first time or the fifth time to one of these meetings, and they get around these like-minded, super positive, energetic people that is completely 180 degrees from the people that go to the ADA or, the state or regional meeting. Yeah. And they're just like on fire, not just because the people around them are inspirational and they're crushing it with their numbers, but just because of the overall energy and their love for the profession and their desire to see the people sitting around them get better. That's typically when I see the light bulb go on and say, oh, I can be that black belt coach. I could be better, and he's going to help me get there.
So it's a lot. You see transformations happen when someone's live. And Craig, you always say this too. I think it's a Tony Robbins thing. There's so much power in proximity, right? And so you're getting in that ecosystem of like someone, it just, like you said, Mark, it's the energy that feels good. It's people saying like, hey, there's no limits. Hey, you should try this. And you get excited about your future or your direction, or you want to change, and then you get excited about that. So I love that you just said that, because there's so much power in being personal. And look, on the context too of us coming off of us being on 1 million Zoom calls for the past 2 years, right? With COVID, it doesn't, Zoom calls don't move the needle like being in person does. I'm so with you on that, bud.
Yeah, I've heard about this COVID. Being in Florida, we haven't acknowledged it yet, but I've heard mutterings about it.
What is this?
What is
COVID?
this 19 thing?
Coats and COVID? Two Florida things we don't understand. But it's true. The immersion is important, and that's why Peter and I like really focus on like our events are always in like really high end places. Like we're at like Terranea in Los Angeles, right in the Pacific Ocean, Ranchos Palos Verdes. It was really cool. But I do think that when you go someplace inspirational, like, and more luxurious, your mind opens up. Some of my best ideas, I can remember the actual physical location I was when I was thinking about them. We all have a strategic and tactical brain. And sometimes in order to envision what you want, you have to get out of your tactical mindset. You have to move.
Some of your best ideas too come like after class, so to speak, right? Because you've carved out time to invest in yourself. Whereas like if you were home, this happens, this comes up, but you're carving time for you and your business. And some of the best ideas come post the meeting, if you will, that in the evenings. Anyway, Mark, so I feel like we took over there for a second, but
no, that's great.
You were a great guest listener for that moment. Appreciate
no, please. I want to listen more.
Mark, that is a funny story. So we've had a guest on before. We invited him early in the scene.
We both know him.
Actually, it was Elijah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
way in the beginning. And all of a sudden, like Craig and I are getting into this banter, and I look down and I'm like thinking to myself, Elijah hasn't said anything in 31 minutes because Craig and I have not allowed it. And so we made it this joke like, dude, you're the best guest listener we've ever had.
It's terrible. It wasn't good.
31 minutes isn't bad.
It wasn't right, but like Craig and I just kept rambling back and forth, and it was like, oh,
I had Ben Greenfield on. You guys know Ben Greenfield?
We had Ben Greenfield on.
We have? Who's that? Refresh my memory.
Well, I don't know if you were involved back then, but honestly, it was like my first one. And Garrett Gunderson, who Mark, you connected me with Garrett long time ago.
Oh my God, that was such a sweaty back. I had an argument with Garrett Gunderson.
He connected me
on the podcast.
He connected me with Ben. Again, I think it was him because and Ben's this big biohacker, and it's probably the biggest fitness podcast.
Oh yeah,
right,
he
Mark?
was on there with me.
Yeah. Oh, so
he had the red light
Ben
on
shows
him.
up with a red light behind him, and like you couldn't see him other than these like LEDs light that he was shining on his back, right? And he's just going crazy into data and statistics. And I was like, this is not going to land well in the dental audience, but we'll keep going.
So I had him on, right? This is so funny, and it's so true. I know exactly what you're talking about. He was on a treadmill the entire time that so he was a little bit out of breath. So it was a brisk walk. And speaking of being a great guest listener, I was a great guest host because I didn't say 6 words. I asked him one question, and I look up and it's 45 minutes later, and I'm like, yeah, trying to at least like inject a little bit of like volume into like to break it up a little bit. But man, the guy went on like this tirade of information, just vomited information all over the audience, and it was incredible information. But I don't know, man. He wasn't super awesome as far as conversation goes. He was great as far as information.
Yeah, I think he's a good like great solo podcaster, because he's so chock full of knowledge that like I couldn't do that, but he can just sit there and, like you said, just pontificate about his thesis, so to speak.
Yeah,
but that was back in when we were trying to find our way in podcast land. And I was like, oh, Ben Greenfield
have we found our way yet? I don't think we found our way.
Know, Craig.
I do each one of these thinking like this is just a conversation amongst friends. And if someone finds it interesting, that's great. But I maybe I should pay attention to it more. But
I would love to know what you guys together collectively, who your favorite guest has been.
Gosh, there's my favorite guest, Craig.
I have my answer.
Yours is going to be Sage Robbins.
Yeah, so I just love her so much. So Tony's wife, Sage, is a friend of mine, personal friend of mine. I just love her. Yeah. So I felt like that had a lot of impact. It has the most downloads, and I don't know. That was just my favorite.
I got to look that up. I got to listen to that. Yeah, she's
I wasn't even on it, Mark, because like Craig has this great woo-woo vision power, and Bonnie is very the same, like listen to your soul and this. And if you I don't like being too close and intimate with my feelings. So like I let Craig take those. But it was really good. I have to say, in full disclosure, I do have after I listened to it, I had a little FOMO not being involved with that one, just because of who she is. But it was great listening to them and their repertoire back and forth.
Okay, so Sage was yours, Craig. Do you have a favorite, Peter?
Honestly, I need to go through. I feel like there's probably 5 that stick out to me, Mark. And I like Tommy Breedlove was a good one we had. Let's see. God, there's been so many.
I'm gonna jump in.
Jump in.
So for me, like outside of that guest, my favorite ones where Peter and I are on just alone. I really do believe that, because half the time,
it's a confirmational bias, buddy.
Well, Peter and I are really close friends, and half the time we're talking, we're just kind of shooting the shit, or he helps me. Like we have individual problems. He's one of the first people I call, and I feel the same for him. So half the time that we're just on regular phone calls, I'm like, damn, that would have been a great podcast. Just kind of working through each other's shit.
We do that a lot.
So I think what makes our podcast special is people can feel that we're good friends, we care for each other, even though he just constantly rags on me. They can see through that. And it's just the experience of 2 friends. And what I think we are to the dental community is 2 people who have gotten their ass kicked a whole bunch of ways and in many different fashions. And we come together to help each other, and people feel that they're part of that. I don't know if I've told you this, Mark, but we had a guy come up to us at the end of a summit, and he was all red in the face, and he was very emotional. And it was right before COVID, actually. It was in February, first week of March, 2020. And we're just finished with our summit in Houston. And he comes up to us. He's like, hey guys, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be here. And Peter and I kind of knew exactly what he meant by that. And he's like, I just listened to you. And he was basically going to take his own life. And it was what he said was like, we are like his counsel. We are this person that he's listening to, that when we talk about our failures, because there's so many people that are just talking about how they kick ass, and we all kick ass in our own way, but we've gotten our ass kicked a lot. And I've stayed in touch with this guy, and he's really kicking butt now. So we poured into him. And so my hope, my true hope, that what we're doing today and every podcast is we're just another friend for them. Dentistry is lonely. Majority of our solopreneurs practicing on our own, and there's no sounding board. So that's all we all need to be for, is just that. So if Peter and I can actually have that real connection, and the interview process is hard because it's a stranger coming into our ecosystem. You're proficient at it because that's all you do. Do you have solo podcast?
I do a lot.
Okay, sorry.
Probably more. I'd probably do more than interviews, probably.
Yeah. So I just think the exchange of the relationship is my favorite part of it.
I have an answer, and I can't believe I drew a blank on this, Mark. So
that was awesome,
sorry.
Craig. Thank you for that.
It caught me by surprise.
Because
I wasn't ready for that. And honestly, I was thinking like, oh my gosh, if I don't say the right answer, then other people are going to get mad. But Patrick Bet-David was on our podcast. I was in the breakers. Yeah, I was in the breakers. Let's call it 2 years ago. And I had followed him on Instagram and things like that, and watched all of his YouTube videos. Because you, Mark, I've been the biggest fan. I've been the biggest fan of YouTube. Just, I don't watch TV. I watch YouTube at night, and I watch videos. Yeah. And so at the time I was watching a shit ton of Patrick Bet-David videos. And so I'm in the breakers. We're there for, I forget, was I there? Oh, it was Memorial Day. Correct?
We were together.
So he's checking in, And like literally, I'm with my wife walking. She's all dressed up. And I go, hey, stop for a second. And I looked out of the corner. And I was like, I think that's Patrick Bet-David. She's like, who?
Yeah.
I was like, the guy I watch on YouTube. No,
My
I don't
wife
know
would
what
say
you're
the
talking
same
about.
thing.
She's like, please don't go up to him. She was sure as shit. I walk up and I'm like, Bet-David? And he goes, yeah. Anyway, and so we just started talking. I think he was surprised that he got recognized because it was a couple of years ago. He's blown up recently. Mm-hmm. So we talked for a while. He's like, what do you do? And he was so cool in person.
So
like, what do you do? I was like, I'm a dentist and I got a podcast, blah, blah. And we kept talking. I was like, maybe one day, I know you'd have to go low, but you could maybe come on our podcast. And he's like, yeah, hit me up kind of thing. And sure as hell, maybe a year later he did it and came on. Of course, I shit the bed though, Mark, because he got on and I got starstruck.
He was so nervous about it.
I was so nervous because, and
I didn't know who he was. The funny thing, I didn't really know at that moment. I found out afterwards. And you want to hear how life comes full circle. So he came in as a patient here. So he's my, so he walks in the consult room.
Do you have HIPAA permission to say this, Craig?
Yeah, well, I took a picture of him, and who cares?
Is that implied consent? Is that implied consent?
He's a friend of mine, Patrick. It's all good, buddy.
Patrick is not listening to our podcast. By the way,
well, I've seen him a couple times now. So I walk in the consult room, I'm like, do I look familiar to you? I know you meet a lot of people, and I literally have Apple TVs in all the consult rooms. So I had the podcast like up on the screen. I'm like, you remember this guy? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, I remember you guys. He's a cool dude, man. Awesome guy.
That's
the other one.
That's a big get.
It is a big get. I got an as big get, but a different industry. So, do you know who Anthony Pompliano is?
Oh, that was awesome.
The name sounds so familiar.
He's a Bitcoin guy.
He's Pomp. He's like the biggest influencer in all of cryptocurrency on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Anthony Pompliano. So he's blown up too, but he's been on the pod and he was awesome. And I wasn't as like stage fright by him, or I shouldn't say I didn't have like stardom stage fright with him. But that was a good one too. And that was just to really engage because one of my loves is crypto, other than dentistry and biohacking.
It's funny.
So anyway, Mark, there's the answer. There's the long-winded answers.
It's funny how you said you kind of shat the bed a little bit with him. I had Robert O'Neill on, the dude who shot bin Laden.
That's awesome.
SEAL Team 6. And I was so nervous and prepping for it. And I was like, everybody set all my stuff up. I had actually another camera crew so we could get different angles and stuff of me interviewing this guy. It was a huge deal. And, we're talking and he's getting into his story and stuff. And I look up and I freaking didn't hit record for like the first 15 minutes. That's a true story.
I just did that recently.
So if you listen to that episode, like the audio is really rough in the beginning because we had to go from the audio from the actual, thank God I had somebody recording me, video recording
backup.
Yeah. So the audio is from the video recorder first, and then we switched over to my mic. But I was so freaking nervous. And then in the middle of it, he's like getting to this really heavy part. And I was like,
dude, stop right there.
I'm not recording. And so I'm trying to like push all these buttons and like actually be in the moment and hear about, him pulling the trigger on the biggest.
Wait, so can we watch this breakdown? Can we watch this like ultimate panic in your face in the video? There's a video out there where we can actually see what the moment where you recognize that you're not recording.
It comes in after I pressed record.
Yeah.
Because
so you're recomposing yourself at that point.
Yeah, but I got him to cry. He was talking.
No way. I was like, Peter to cry. That'd be awesome, Mark.
No, let's do tears. It's impossible.
You got SEAL Team 6 guy to cry.
Greg, you can't hurt my feelings because I don't have any.
I asked him. I'm like, so you pretty much thought that you were going to die. He's like, yeah, all of us thought we were going to die. We knew where we were going. Nobody else knew where we were going. I couldn't even tell my parents, my dad, or anything. I go, what was the hardest part about it? And then he started crying. He's like, well, I had to say goodbye to my daughters, and I wrote them letters for them to open up on their wedding day. And I was like, oh, dude. And he started crying, and I was like, all right, that'll get you. That'll get you.
Yeah, that's a lot.
What a powerful.
Because he knew that the probability, like he has a high likelihood he might not come home, huh?
Yeah, they all thought they were going to die. It was interesting too, because he was talking about the chopper on the way over there. And he's like, you want to talk about some dudes with ice water in their veins? He's like, 3/4 of the guys, it was a 45-minute Black Hawk, or I think it was a Black
Apache,
Hawk.
whatever.
Apache, probably Apache, because Apache carries the larger payload. So they were in the Apache. He's like, yeah, like most of the team fell asleep. And the SEAL dog fell asleep. They're just like, it's just another day. I'm probably gonna die here, but I'm just gonna take a nap here.
I have a good buddy who's a SEAL. It's an interesting process, huh?
It's a different human. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
well, they make you different. They, you know, the unfortunate thing, you know, and not to go tangential, is that they kind of make you into this machine, this machine, and there's no disintegration process to go back into.
That's true.
So my buddy I grew up with, you know, he went out of Iraq and then went back into Blackwater and special ops and stuff like that. He couldn't get enough of it because that's what you know. And there's not a real great unwinding process to reintegrate you into society. So there's a lot of fallout, unfortunately.
It's kind of like the Jason Bourne stuff. It's like you can't unprogram that.
Like it's like dental school, but more intense.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like being a dentist. You can't unprogram that.
It's like D1 year. Yeah, biochem.
Yeah, wax up something. Yeah.
So obviously that was probably your favorite guest. I'm guessing
him and Ryan Holiday. You know,
oh no, you had Ryan Holiday. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I've got to become a bigger Mark Costas fan than I already am.
Is that possible?
I don't know. Talk to me about Ryan Holiday.
That was special.
That's special
because
to me because I love the stoic stuff.
That dude was so cool and so engaged and so just like into it the whole time. He was awesome. And then I had David Sinclair, the Lifespan guy that's been on Joe Rogan. And, that was a funny one because you could tell his booker booked it and he's like, I'm talking to a bunch of dentists. He was like so apathetic and like not into it in the beginning. And I started asking him like really, really good questions about his book because I had read his book a couple times. And then you could just see his like demeanor completely change.
Yeah.
Like sits up.
That's straight. The unfortunate thing. They think they're going to be, they don't understand that dentists were business owners, were humans. And like when Scott Galloway was on, Galloway was making fun of him. He's like, how did I get on this freaking thing? Like, what am I doing here?
What is my career consisted of that now I'm on a dental podcast?
He was so good. He's like, let's get this shit show on the road, guys.
He was, because
he's a buddy of mine.
He was my favorite.
He's a buddy of mine. He's like, dude, how far have I come in my career to be in a
hilarious
fucking podcast? Like
this is the highlight of my career for sure.
Great. Yeah, it was awesome.
It's funny. So yeah, I just love kind of looking back. And the funny thing is like the bigger names, a lot of times for me, Sage was your biggest download episode. For me, it's like Robert O'Neill, dude that shot Bin Laden, didn't get the highest downloads. It's like,
no way.
It's weird. It comes down to like, I think a lot of it is like, if you have a bigger name guest, like I had Robert Kiyosaki on, he didn't get a ton of downloads either because I think,
man, I didn't know you had him either. I gotta
but yet how to do a class 5 composite got the highest download. I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
No, it's true. It's random. It's like you talk, it's all in the headline, right? It's just like email open rates. It's like, you say Robert Kiyosaki and they're like, oh, I've seen him interviewed 25 times. Robert O'Neill. Oh yeah. I just saw him on Fox News. So I don't need to listen to that, but
yeah, that's what it is about Sage Robbins. She's not a public person. She does not do that. She's like, admittedly, I don't do any of this stuff. I'll do it for you, but I don't do it. So if you're looking for content specifically from her and you search her, that's the only thing that I'm aware of. So it was a really great glimpse into her, who she is. And she's so powerful. I mean, obviously Tony's the headliner in the recognition world, but she's an equal powerful force, just in a different opposing way. But she's transformed my life and helped me so much. It's great to have her as a friend.
That's really nice to hear that she is that way. Cause I know Josh and I've met Tony, but I don't know Sage. I've never met her, but it
total
seems like
freaking rock star, brother. Total.
Seems like she had to have been to be accepted into that family and to
awesome. That's awesome. You
Ooh,
still talk to
Mark?
I don't talk to Josh. I haven't talked to Josh in over a year, probably.
Yeah, he's a good friend. Good guy.
Good guy.
I know we're 1 of 6 today, so I want to be cognizant of your time.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a little jab at you, but you shouldn't have told Craig. You hurt his feelings.
Yeah, I do have one in 4 minutes. I just realized.
Okay, well then,
it's with Oprah. It's no big deal, Peter.
I'm glad that we changed. You know, we've basically changed the trajectory of all dentists listening to this episode, right? I mean, we talked about such hard hitting,
like Lipson. Lipson's really important for dentists. You know. Yep. I didn't even know what the hell that was.
All right, let's end on this.
Okay.
Bullish on dentistry right now, Mark, or
Well, let me, that's a hard one to say no
All
to.
right.
Let me ask in a different way.
That was hard. You want me to end on that?
No,
Dang.
I just want to, but I know where Peter's going. Do you feel like, let's just say 2 to 3 years, obviously everything's on fire. You know, how are you feeling globally on dentistry over the next 3 years? Are you feeling like we're going to take a minor setback like the pundits are saying, or do you think it's full steam ahead?
You know, I'm one of the few people in podcasting that actually went through the last recession. And it was, and Peter, and I don't know if you did, Greg, you're younger than us, but
right.
for me,
Thank you,
for
buddy.
me, the last recession was
Greg was 40 in 2009.
Yeah, I was 46 in 2009. Buddy. I'm sorry, I was 56 in 2009. I did the math wrong.
Yeah.
Good. Sorry, Mark.
Aging in reverse. Yeah. So we that was a big time for my group. We went from like 6 practices to like 11 practices during the last pandemic. It was a defining
last
time
recession.
for us. I'm sorry, during the last recession, not last
Right.
pandemic. Duh. And so yeah, we I'm not scared of it, but I do believe that the consumer sentiment is going to be strained for sure. I think that inflation is going to affect a lot of things as far as the way we spend money, the way we borrow money. So yeah, I'm still bullish on dentistry. I'm still bullish.
Yeah,
on
me
dentistry.
too.
I think we have some challenging times ahead, but I think it's going to.
The only reason I ask that is because you always hear like, oh, those were the golden years in dentistry, and you hear people like pull back. They're like, well, the golden years are gone, so I'm going to pull back. I'm like, the golden years are ahead. I promise you, It's always ahead. And so it's just this doom and gloom sometimes we get in dentistry. Like, well, I'm going to save for this. I'm not going to risk that, and yes, there is some macroeconomic things that you should pay attention to, but in general, we have the biggest blessing ever is to be in the vessel of dentistry as business people. And, I always say there's a barrier to entry, right? Usually unless you're in Arizona, you have to be a dentist to own the practice. Most states you do. So there's a barrier to entry. And so the competition isn't that fierce, right? It's not like a restaurant where everyone can buy one and get one and compete. There's a barrier to entry. And if you're kind of all in, then it's really easy to do well. And if you're a good human, it's really easy to do well. Especially if you are continually learning, like masterminds or summits or in-persons, like you're just destined to succeed, in my opinion. So I think it's one of the greatest professions in the world for that capacity.
Yeah. And if you surround yourself with people like you guys, like our group, pick one. Yeah,
for sure. And also don't try to be something you're not. Don't compete with something that you think you should be. There's many different ways. Each dental practice is a snowflake. Have it be authentically what you want to create, and no one can compete with you. So if you don't have to be the guy who owns 2 and 3 practices, you can still just do what you want. I love those breakthroughs, by the way, when someone comes to our group and said, I want to open up 10 practices, and through all the visioneering and workshops and stuff like that, they're like, actually, I want to be in my own practice.
Right.
That was not what I wanted.
Yeah. I love that too.
That's a breakthrough. That's a breakthrough one way or the other, right? Mark, tell us where your big summit is for the year. I know you're having one like the week in June, as well as our big, well, we only do one. But tell us where it is and the dates and such.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. June 10th and 11th at the JW Marriott, Desert Ridge, Arizona. I have been a speaker at one of Mark's events, and I can tell you it is top tier. Awesome. You talk about that energy in the room. It's awesome. I would highly encourage everyone listening to go. And, Mark, and if you can be in, ours, like I said, is in Nashville in the weekend before. So if you could make it, I'm sure people would love to have you there. I know you're a busy man, but, and where can people go to learn more? Sorry. Don't you have a website address for that? Yeah.
Sorry.
TrueDentalSuccess.com. And click on the summit or the event icon, and it'll get you there. Still 40% off tickets.
Nice.
We are going to sell out. They're only letting us have 700 people in the room this year.
700 you do?
Well,
holy shit. That's a lot.
They limited. Last year, they limited us to 500, and we sold that out really quick. This year, they're allowing us. They bumped it up a little bit. So yeah.
What do we cap ours at, Craig? 300?
I'm sorry?
What do we cap ours at? 300?
Yeah, we're gonna sell it too, but we are capping at 300. We were over 300 last.
You like how he slid that "Me Too" in there, Mark? We're gonna sell out too. Me too.
No, we're gonna sell it for sure. We always
Oh,
have.
yeah.
The problem, the
I'm
reason
just
why I say
kidding.
that is
I'm
because I always
kidding.
get the text in the call at the end, like, "Hey man,
Right.
can you blah 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 blah?" And I'm like,
I
no,
It's like, hey, can you?
so
can
guys, please.
Yeah,
Like
Seriously,
the hotel block is over or almost over too. So people are like, "Oh, I have to get an Airbnb." I'm like,
Yeah, they think because I've got your cell phone number, which means the rules don't apply, right? You're like, well, I can't do anything now.
Seriously, it's like when it's sold out, it's like really sold out.
Yeah, of
For
course
real.
it is.
For
Of
real.
course.
Yeah.
So don't delay.
Well, buddy,
those
I
tickets.
enjoyed this. I know you got to go.
You
It's
guys
always
are so
good to
awesome.
connect with you, man. And yeah, Craig and I are always rooting for you, as I know you
Yeah,
are,
big time, brother.
as you are us. So
Right back at you.
yeah,
I'm
man.
so blessed to have you guys in my life. Thank you guys so much.
Oh,
for
you're awesome, buddy.
making
You're
time.
awesome.
Seriously.
How's that pilot's license going? You got it yet? You just sold it?
Oh, shit. It's a
All
long
right.
story. It's a long story.
Okay, long story.
I went up
Okay.
yesterday,
Good.
dusted off some ring rust.
Okay,
and,
good.
you would have been proud of me.
Why is that? Kept the shiny side up?
Yeah, I had.
That's how you know.
Yeah. I had the same number of landings as takeoffs, so
That's important. You're always going to land. It's just the question is how hard.
That's
Remember
true.
that.
That's a very good point. That's good.
Yeah,
very
you're always
good
going
point.
to land.
Yeah, but I'm refining. I had to take a couple months off because of some personal stuff. My dad got sick, but
I'm sorry to hear
but
that.
yeah, we're back at it. I
Good
did
stuff.
did the simulator 2 days prior to getting back in the air, and I was like, I'm going to kill myself if I get in the air right now.
God forbid, brother. Don't say crap like that. Just be
Yeah.
safe.
Yes,
be
I was
safe.
safe. I was safe.
Yeah.
And things are looking good. So thank you.
Yeah, good. You look like you look intact to me. I haven't seen your biceps. It's hard to see them.
Most
Let
of
me
mine-
see.
Oh,
Okay,
you
there.
guys see
Boom.
this?
Okay,
See
good.
this?
Yeah.
You guys might not have seen
biggest
this.
biceps.
Oh, look
biggest
at
biceps
that.
in dentistry. Look at
Jeez
this tat.
Louise. What is that? Wait, Dwayne, talk to me, Dwayne the Rock Johnson. What does this mean?
There's a lot of deep meaning to this. There's every icon and line
Holy shit.
and column is having to do with my ancestry. We go back
Are you
to
Samoan?
I am Filipino. This is a Filipino warrior tattoo. So we go
No
all the
way.
way back to my great grandfather and what they did for a living, the languages they spoke, the islands they lived on.
No way.
Yeah.
You're a Filipino
That's
rock.
awesome. Did your wife give any pushback to a sleeve at this stage of your life?
She loves it.
Good.
That's awesome.
That's
My
great.
wife would hate it.
Yeah.
No,
That's
my
cool.
wife. Yeah, I don't know.
She'd be like, "What's wrong with you?
I don't have enough
Midlife
room
crisis."
on my arm to fit that much stuff. My arms are too skinny. I
Yeah,
have to
you
wrap
have the
around
biggest
like
arms in
twice.
dentistry.
I have to.
He's
do
got the
that.
biggest arms in dentistry.
I have to put that one on
All
my
right.
thigh. All right, buddy. Nice to see you.
All right. Thanks you guys so much. Great to see
See you,
We'll talk to
buddy.
you soon.
I'm
Okay.
in.
All the
Take
best,
care.
guys.
Bye.